Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is being urged to provide details of loans from the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project wants information on projects on which overdrafts have been spent and repayment of all overdrafts since 2015. The organization is also urging the president to provide details of spending of overdrafts and loans obtained from the Central Bank of Nigeria by successive governments between 1999 and 2015.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by SORAB Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare. Good evening and welcome to Newsnight.
Good evening.
Okay, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, first, let's ask you, how did you gather this information that gives the impression, that gives you this grave concern?
It sits in the public domain that the CBN, the federal government, wants to convert the various overdrafts we've been getting from the CBN to a formal loan. And that is why we took this initiative to ensure that if all this is going to happen, the details of these transactions, right from when they commenced up till now, needs to be disclosed in the interest of transparency and accountability and good governance.
Yes, and why is government seemingly not willing to be more open as far as its financials are concerned? What role exactly does the freedom of information play in all of this?
I wouldn't understand why it beats me why government we have so much opacity in government affairs, particularly when it comes to the financial affairs of state. That is why we have the Freedom of Information Act, which has been passed in 2011, which guarantees the right of every citizen, whether lettered or unlettered, to have access to information. And we've seen this play out over the years at governance at all levels and even at all tiers, where we have to go to court in most instances to get the BRS access to information, particularly looking at what we're talking about. This is about the financial state of Nigeria, given the recession Nigeria is in and the dire state of our economy. These huge amounts of money should not be spent or taken as loans without the formal process of loan taking being adhered to. And that is why we have done as a form of, we need to have this information clearly spelled out. And then we can do some kind of advocacy, including all citizens, to ensure that if this is going to be done, it must be done the proper way in line with the provisions of the law, particularly the CBN Act.
Okay, so what has been the effort? What are the steps that you have taken to secure this information from government, apart from coming to the media?
What we did actually was to write a letter to the president, copying the CBN governor and the debt management office, including the attorney general and the minister of finance, to get this critical information. I would agree with me that these parties that we've named are in the best position by reason of their office and the laws that regulate these areas that should naturally have this information. So we wrote a letter to them. What we released the public statement highlighting the salient points of the letter. And the letter, I believe, has been delivered in line with the Freedom of Information Act. And each of these parties have 7 days, as provided by the law, to provide this information.
And beyond seeking this very vital information from the federal government, in terms of advocacy or providing alternatives as to how the Nigerian government can be more transparent and less opaque, what are the solutions you are providing as SORAB?
Our various advocacy initiatives are geared towards this purpose, holding government to account, as it were, to ensure that the barriers of information, right from budgetary allocations and the expenditure and procurement of government, is available to the public. That advocacy itself needs to an end. It is meant to galvanize that much needed public participation in governance, as it were, and to make that you would agree with that advocacy cannot be done in any way, whether informally or formally by civil society, without the much needed information in the public space. So even our litigations that we rely on sometimes in the absence of cooperation from government agencies, it's towards this end, advocacy to ensure participatory governance.
Now considering going to court to compel the government to release this information, or what other option is available to you?
Ordinarily, we would believe that this shouldn't be one of those cases that would end up in court. If government would just perform the obligations as provided under the various laws, including the Freedom of Information Act, but the same Freedom of Information Act gives every Nigerian the right to approach the courts to ventilate their grievances and to compel the government institutions to provide information in the absence of willful withholding of such information. So if we don't get the information, naturally we would go to court. But we are very hopeful that we will get information in this instance without resort to litigation.
And I wonder what Serap thinks in terms of the implications of this opaqueness, which you accuse government of being beyond anything else. Now, Nigeria has borrowed so far about $84 billion. That's about 32.2 trillion naira so far. What are the long-term implications of this if this is not checked now?
Even in the short term, so look at the 2020 budget, over 2 trillion deficit. Look at the 2021 budget, we have over 5 trillion deficit. That speaks in itself in the short term. It means basically that these various loans create a heavy burden, not only on public finance, but it tells on the citizens of Nigeria. It means for every kind of revenue we get, even from oil, which is these critical funds will be spent paying back loans. As it stands, Nigeria is using 80% of its revenue to pay back loans. And these are the much needed capital to sink into capital expenditure. We're talking of roads, of schools, of healthcare.
Okay, Mr. Oluwadare, thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there. We're sure that this conversation is going to go on for quite a bit. That was Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director at SERAP.